Good morning. My name is Jake, and I'm a second-year PhD student at the University of Chicago. I'm presenting on some research that my collaborators and I have been working on, entitled Uncovering Privacy and Security Challenges in K-12 Schools. Pulling from recent headlines, last spring, the New York City Department of Education announced a major breach of student data. Hackers got information on 820,000 current and former students. Predictably, there was the run-of-the-mill sensitive information, such as legal names and birthdays, but there was also unique, domain-specific sensitive information, like special education status, or if a student qualified for a free lunch. As you can see, the education plus technology space has serious privacy implications for K-12 students when things go awry. But what realities in the educational technology space have enabled this sort of privacy loss? You may not know it, but today's K-12 classrooms are permeated with technology products. What does this look like? Well, these products facilitate education with softwares such as Noodle Tools or Quizlet, which scaffold student research and create digital flashcards respectively. They can manage student learning through platforms such as Schoology, Moodle, and Google Classroom, which boast functionality to distribute, collect, and grade assignments, along with hosting class materials. Or it can administrate students and their data. Skyward and PowerSchool, for example, are highly popular back-end systems to manage student registration data, which includes personal identifiable information along with student grades. With these observations in hand, we wanted to come up with a definition for educational technology, or EdTech, that was broad enough to cover products from Google Docs to Zoom, while also retaining enough specificity to be useful. We came up with the following definition. EdTech is any website, app, or software that has collected student data and markets an educational solution primarily to K-12 schools and their students. Take, for example, Office 365 and YouTube. Both products collect data on students. Students write paper in the Office suite and watch tutorials on YouTube. However, Office 365 offers a specific version of the product for students, while YouTube does not. Thus, YouTube is not EdTech. Naturally, this raised a few questions. We wanted to know how much privacy awareness do key public school decision makers have regarding EdTech, and what potential risks can we identify from K-12 school district websites and third-party EdTech websites. Starting with the first question, we conducted semi-structured interviews with 18 school officials and IT personnel hailing from 9 different U.S. states. A school official means superintendent, principal, or other administrator, and an IT personnel ranges from the head of IT to a technology resource person whose responsibilities include fixing the printer. We wanted to understand how EdTech got into the classroom since these school officials and IT personnel are the gatekeepers. Here, we found that the key public school decision makers generally have low privacy awareness, and this impacts their EdTech product acquisitions. There is low privacy awareness in schools. In all 11 districts, we learned that schools use professional development sessions to help teachers learn new technology-related and EdTech-related skills. Unfortunately, these trainings often lacked information about student data privacy and security. Instead, the vast majority of that training, for 9 out of 11 school districts, was focused on immediate needs, such as how to use specific pieces of software, such as screencasts, Smart Notebook, and PowerPoint, to enhance their teaching. Any privacy and security training the school offers is overwhelmingly cybersecurity focused. This is because schools are concerned about their teachers falling for malicious tactics such as phishing attacks or spreading ransomware. As a bulwark against bringing bad software into the classroom, participants discussed how they acquired EdTech. They mainly discussed the paid EdTech acquisition process. Paid EdTech is EdTech where the school pays for a per-seat license. The image on screen outlines the 5 stages of this acquisition process. However, in this talk, we will focus on the privacy implications of the contract stage. The majority of the participants said that the contracts between the school districts and the EdTech companies define the parameters of their relationship. Thus, the contract acts as a locus of control, which sets the norms and expectations around how student data will be used, stored, and collected. In other words, data governance. We asked participants what they considered when thinking about data governance for student data. Only 7 out of the 18 participants specifically mentioned sharing data with third parties as an important topic, and only in the context of boilerplate language. Within these 7 participants of note, 3 participants expected vendors to share data with companies that conduct internal audits or reviews, and 1 participant said that they allow an EdTech vendor to share with third parties as long as they list them in the contract. Unfortunately, schools reported that, in most cases, they are unable to negotiate their contracts. In fact, P10 states that we're too small. It's a boilerplate contract they send us, and you either sign it or you don't get their product. P10's quote encapsulates the sentiment of the majority of our participants. Namely, they lack the economic power to negotiate the terms of their contracts. Either they accept the terms or pass on the product. The low number of participants considering student data at this stage points to the fact that student privacy is rarely considered outside of boilerplate language. Moreover, although we fully didn't explore this in the study, participants told us that teachers can circumvent the top-down paid edtech process by incorporating edtech into their classrooms without any oversight, thus leading to student privacy harms. So, low privacy awareness in key personnel in schools adversely affects student privacy in the classroom. What about outside the classroom and on the internet? Switching gears to the second question, what potential privacy risks can we identify from K-12 school district websites and third-party edtech websites? Well, we scraped 15,000 US school district domains to find their linked URLs. Then, with the linked URLs, we scraped them to see what edtech products they list or link to on these sites, since school districts usually list edtech products that they use. We take being listed as a tacit endorsement of the product. For example, if Schoology is listed on a site, it likely has the students using this product or condones its use. We then look through all the listed URLs and categorize whether they're edtech or not. We use this information to understand what were the most widely endorsed edtech products in the U.S. public schools, and to explore potential privacy issues like trackers on these websites. Our privacy analysis was done with off-the-shelf tools. In Chicago, from where I'm from, we have the Chicago Public School District, which uses the domain cps.edu. By the university, there's an elementary school called Woodlawn, and it is hosted on the district domain, but its address is woodlawn.cps.edu. To summarize the whole system, it looks like this. We start with school district domains, and then we run a web crawler to scrape the websites for linked URLs. Then we do a privacy analysis of those linked URLs and a privacy analysis of any login pages we encounter on those linked URLs. Of note, during the privacy analysis, when we perform our cookie and tracker counts, we only generate unique counts by registered domain. For example, we count 2 or more cookies from Google Analytics as only as a single instance of cookie usage per site. From our scraping and scans, we uncovered that U.S. school districts' websites tacitly endorse many domains with potential privacy issues. Of the top 300 most common websites linked to by the 15,000 school district domains that were not broken URLs, 110 out of 300 were edtech sites, including content creation like Prezi, educational games like Kahoot, and formative assessments like the Renaissance Suite. 174 out of 300 were not edtech. Either they did not collect student data, or, more commonly, were not primarily marketed at K-12 schools and their students. This trend of less edtech sites is mirrored in the top 10 most linked websites. Only sites 9 and 10 counted as edtech. We encountered the following privacy issues on all of these sites. On the left here is a table with some privacy stats, and on the right is an example of what login page for one of the edtech products looks like. We found that nearly all of the top sites discovered through our scraping are making extensive use of tracking technologies. Just focusing on the left column and going down the list, there's a very high number of cookies trackers which record information about the visiting party. 92% of the sites have third-party cookies, and 85% of the link sites have third-party trackers. Skipping to the bottom of the list, we see that there is a 26.5% proliferation of the metapixel, which sends fine-grained information to Meta, possibly without a user's consent. Tracking is not inherently problematic, but more information is needed. Personally, a more potentially alarming discovery was the number of sites that utilized the session recorder. We found that 7.4% of linked third-party sites used the session recorder. Anyone visiting those sites would have their entire session captured, which includes information such as which links they clicked on, what images they hovered over, and even data entered into fields but not submitted. This could include data that users might otherwise consider private, such as the autofilling of saved user credentials or social network data. In short, the websites that school districts link to and thus tacitly endorse may present privacy risks to students. This is concerning because, normatively, school children should not have to relinquish their privacy to receive a public school education. Granted, while these results are compelling, we don't know what information is exfiltrated from student devices. In my final minute here, I'd like to leave you with the following. Based on our findings, the K-12 education environment lacks sufficiently privacy education and awareness. Despite federal laws protecting education-related data and children's data, issues keep occurring, like the potential privacy leakages we discussed in RQ2. So a legal solution isn't proving to be effective. A more likely solution is to create tools that preserve student privacy. An issue with this is that many edtech sites experience breakage when trackers are blocked. How to effectively navigate that in the education space remains an open question. Thank you.